Secret Invasion is coming to the MCU, but which Marvel characters will turn out to be Skrulls? Let's find out. What's up, my comic comrades? The upcoming Disney Plus Secret Invasion series, which is loosely based on the comic series of the same name, will finally expand on the events surrounding the Skrulls that took place in the Captain Marvel movie, and especially the Spider-Man Far From Home movie, where we saw the Skrulls working with and/or for Nick Fury and impersonating several known Marvel heroes on Earth, including Fury himself. We also learned that Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. were working with some of the Skrulls to create and build S.W.O.R.D. Outside of that, we have been given very little info since, which leads us to the Secret Invasion story, where Marvel will likely reveal that several MCU characters have been Skrulls for at least a portion of time. So let's talk about who some of them might be and why. An important note here is that a lot of this will depend on how the MCU uses the evil faction of the Skrulls shown in the trailer. I say this because in their debut in the 2019 Captain Marvel film, they were portrayed in a much more positive light, painted as victims of the Kree Empire. But in the comic books, they're no angels. So in order to get to the events of Secret Invasion and make the Skrulls more compelling in the MCU going forward, you have to at least give us a subset of the Skrulls who are malevolent. This again would be more in line with the comic story where Skrulls had secretly invaded human society, as well as the Avengers for their own malicious reasons. With that in mind, the first character we think could easily be a Skrull is Sharon Carter, or Agent 13. Anyone who's watched The Falcon and the Winter Soldier knows she was acting all kinds of shady in that series. Very sus, one would say. Originally, she sided with the Avengers in Civil War, and because of this, she had to go on the run after the US government branded her as an enemy of the state. But Sharon Carter is no chump. She knows how to survive, so she established herself in Madripoor as the character known as the Power Broker. Through a series of events, we come to find out that as the Power Broker, she's ruled the criminal underworld of Madripoor. This obviously made her a crap ton of money, specifically during the time of the blip or snap, as no one was looking for her, thinking she was dead. Long story short, in this series, we see her team up with Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes as they go after the group known as the Flag Smashers. In the end, Carter kills the Flag Smashers leader, Karli. After this, Sam Wilson, now the new Captain America, is able to get Carter a US pardon. She was granted the pardon in the post-credits scene of episode 6. So one of two things is going on here. One, she's being a bitter Betsy because she didn't get a pardon up front. They basically forgot about her, and that whole situation was a plot point of the series. And now she's like, yeah, whatever, you finally decided to give me a pardon after all this time, but screw you, I have a new lucrative business, now thanks to you. And I'm gonna sell all your weapons and information to the black market. Or two, she doesn't care one way or another because she's a damn Skrull and now has access to all the US weapons, prototypes, and overall intelligence. So now she could be a mole for the Skrulls, so to speak, able to keep them one step ahead of the Avengers and US government, constantly feeding them intel, secrets, and all that stuff. Whichever way they go, all I'm saying is she's definitely suspect for being a Skrull, as they're definitely alluding to her going rogue or being secretly evil. But if she is a Skrull, another question would be, has she been a Skrull from the start, all the way back from Civil War? Because it could be possible she was helping manipulate the events of Civil War in the first place. Or has the real Sharon Carter been killed or taken hostage during the time of the blip, and now a Skrull is acting in her place? Or she could have been blipped, came back, only to find out a Skrull has been impersonating her. But let's keep moving. Next up, Hank Pym could totally be a Skrull. Think about it. In the MCU, he is one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. Imagine the ramifications that could be had if we find out that Hank Pym, inventor of the Pym particles and one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D., has been a Skrull this entire time. Now, unlike Sharon Carter, I don't think there's been anything suspect or necessarily shady that suggests Hank Pym would be a Skrull, but I think that's the brilliance of it. So far in the MCU, we've only seen very brief flashbacks of his time as Ant-Man, and besides that, he's just helped Scott Lang on the science side of things. So what if he's been secretly plotting something all these years? Again, the fact that he isn't necessarily that suspect would make this such a good reveal, because I don't think anyone would see this coming. Now, diehard comic book fans would be like, yeah, that makes sense, because in the Secret Invasion story arc, Hank Pym was one of the characters revealed to be a Skrull. But again, the MCU's Hank Pym is completely different, so they would have to make up some other reason to why he was a Skrull. In any case, I think it would be a solid twist while still being a nice homage to the Secret Invasion storyline. Speaking of hell of a twist, War Machine. I think it would make all the sense in the world that Tony Stark's best friend Roadie was a Skrull. I mean, imagine that. Don Cheadle is one of the OG Avengers. He's been there since the early days of the Infinity Saga. Roadie has also been popping up a lot lately and going to be popping up a lot more. We saw him briefly in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He's going to be in the upcoming Secret Invasion Disney Plus series, which instantly makes him suspect, and we know he's going to be in the Armor Wars movie. And besides that, it just makes sense from a storytelling perspective. One of the most intriguing parts parts of the Secret Invasion comic is that we had reveals of major superheroes turning out to be Skrulls, like Elektra, Hank Pym, Spider-Woman, and more. And let's be honest, there's no way they're gonna make an A-list superhero like Spider-Man, Captain America, or Thor a Skrull. And though I love War Machine, he's not quite Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man level character, but he's still a beloved enough superhero that it would be a huge shock. And since we know he's gonna be a main part of the Secret Invasion Disney Plus series and the Armor Wars movie, what if the Secret Invasion show towards the end reveals him to be a Skrull, ultimately leading into Armor Wars? Armor Wars could be about the real Roadie dealing with the ramifications of having a Skrull imposter him this whole time. And now the Skrulls have access to Tony's tech, hence the Armor Wars. At which point Ironheart would come in with her self-made armor to combat Roadie and help find the real one. Come on, that sounds like something the MCU would totally do. You know what? Here's a quick random one that really has no rhyme or reason. It's just purely something I wish is true. And that's the fact that I hope they reveal Ulysses Klaue from the first Black Panther film, played by Andy Serkis, was a Skrull. Simply because it was such a damn shame that they killed one of the more iconic Black Panther villains halfway through the first film. And not only is Klaue an iconic Black Panther villain, he was played by freaking Andy Serkis himself, Gollum. How dare you, Marvel? You're just gonna kill off Andy the Man Serkis halfway through the movie? Really? That's what you did? Okay, so do I think Klaue was a Skrull? No, this is purely just wishful thinking here. Next up, we got Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, good old General Ross himself, who's going to be played by Harrison Ford. His debut as General Ross will be in the upcoming Captain America New World Order movie, and we also know he's going to be the President of the United States in that film.
Get off my plane.
Ross has always been that one guy in the MCU that's kind of pissed off everyone. He's that government or military official that everyone hates. He's the one who was pushing the Sokovia Accords in Civil War, which split the Avengers right down the middle. He's also always been after Bruce Banner and or the Hulk to get that serum and use it for his own purposes. Essentially, he wants to turn Banner's gamma serum into a weapon for the US government. So him being a Skrull would explain why he's been such a jerk and so suspect since the beginning. And now him being the President of the United States in this next Captain America movie, putting a Skrull, a shapeshifter, in the most powerful position in the world would make one hell of a story. Now, like many of you, I'd much rather see Ross go Red Hulk, but him being a Skrull would also make a lot of sense. Maybe we could even have both, like one of the reasons the real Ross becomes Red Hulk is to fight the Skrulls, as well as just wanting the power for himself because Ross. And lastly, we have Valentina de Fontaine. She was introduced to us towards the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier Disney Plus series, as we see her recruit US agent into what we now know is going to be her Thunderbolts team. And the Thunderbolts is Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad, effectively making Fontaine Marvel's Amanda Waller. We also saw her in Wakanda Forever, where we find out that her and Everett Ross have a romantic history. Now, in the comic book, she is the longtime lover of Nick Fury. She was also the leader of a special SHIELD unit of extremely skilled women called FemForce. The main reason why I think she's going to be a Skrull is because I think she's one of the characters that Marvel's going to keep close to the comic books, at least in the Secret Invasion aspect. You see, during the Secret Invasion storyline, she reappeared after not being seen for a very long time. But the reason she reappeared is because we find out she was a Skrull copy that was sent to spy on Nick Fury and learn as many secrets as she possibly could. But of course, Fury eventually caught on and killed her. So though in the MCU she has a romantic history with Everett Ross, they could possibly do something similar with Ross. You don't even have to link it to a romantic relationship, just the pure fact that she's the director of the CIA would be a crazy reveal, as that means you could have a Skrull leading one of the most powerful organizations in the United States. Think about it, if everything said here is correct, you would have Agent 13, aka Sharon Carter, working for the US government, again being able to steal weapons, prototypes, and all sorts of intel. Fontaine, director of CIA, giving her access to high-level secret intel. And then General Ross, who is the President of the United States, literally the leader of the country. Not to mention James Rhodes, who has access to all of Iron Man's tech, and Hank Pym, one of the founders of SHIELD, meaning Skrulls would have invaded our government on the highest scale. That could make for an epic story going forward. There are so many different things you could do with that. But again, these are just our theories. There are other characters in the MCU who could also be Skrulls. So let us know who you think is a Skrull down in the comments.